No, there's not DLSS on the Steam Deck. It's not possible, trust me. Oh my God, no, you're not listening. I told you, you can't. It's not a thing. The Steam Deck doesn't have an NVIDIA GPU. It's literally impossible. You really gonna make me prove it? All right, I will, but this isn't gonna go well for you. You're gonna look pretty dumb after Wait, what? DLSS upscaling and frame generation. How did you... There's no way this works. Oh my God. Hey there, how you doing? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. So here's the thing, I wasn't lying in the intro. You know when I said, no, there's not DLSS on the Steam Deck. That's true, but I also wasn't lying when I said DLSS upscaling and frame generation on the Steam Deck. And then also when I said, well, maybe we can't get married, but that doesn't mean we can't, no, that was the wrong clip. Forget about that. I was just joking anyways there. We're here to focus on frame generation on the Steam Deck and upscaling, but mostly frame gen. And right out of the gate, I'm going to tell you, this is not actual DLSS 3. Like, you're going to see that I'm enabling DLSS 3 in the games, but just to be clear, this is not actual DLSS. And we'll talk about why, but it's no less impressive, honestly. And it's easy to set up, and it literally turns games running at like 40 FPS into games running at like 70 FPS. It's actually kind of amazing. Game changing, if you will. You may have seen some articles and videos floating around about this topic. Some pretty outlandish claims. Double the FPS on your Steam Deck with this one weird trick. Obviously, I was skeptical. I've used frame generation in the past. I've made videos about frame generation and I was kind of lukewarm about it on several occasions. But as amazing as the Steam Deck is, I can admit that I often wish it had a bit more oomph. So the idea that I could use not just upscaling but also frame generation is super appealing to me because I'm already making concessions on the Steam Deck. I'm already running games at lower settings to get that TDP down and dealing with a lower FPS, and I'm fine with it because I love gaming on the Steam Deck so freaking much. So my inherent bias against frame generation was conflicting with my other bias that I want games to run better on the deck, and it tore me up inside. I was in a dark place, man. So my therapist said, "TechDweeb, it sounds like you know what you have to do." And I said, "You're so wise, therapist." And she said, "Stop calling me therapist. I told you, my name is Beverly." And then I said, "No time for names now, lady. I gotta go try out frame gen on my Steam Deck and make a video about it." And here we are. The thing that we're going to do today is a bit of a hacky way to get frame generation working in games on our Steam Deck. The idea is that we're going to use FSR 3.1 frame generation, which is an open source frame generation tech made by AMD that does not require any fancy RTX GPUs. And we're going to use a mod that injects this into specific games and allows frame gen to be enabled by spoofing the FSR frame gen as DLSS frame gen. So the game thinks that you have an RTX GPU and lets you turn on DLSS, but then it uses FSR instead. We're pulling the old switcheroo. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. And the performance boost to get is substantial, and it's honestly crazy impressive. The reason I was skeptical in the past was that I heard nasty rumors about terrible input latency and visual artifacts, and that frame gen is run by AI terrorist organizations. But I gotta admit that I was worried about nothing. It works amazing. It's definitely worth doing if in the games that support it. Here's the thing though, for this frame gen stuff, the game itself needs to support frame generation. You can't just go applying this willy-nilly to every game out there without frame gen built in. You can see a list of games that support frame generation in the link below, and there's lots of them there, so just keep that in mind. It's not going to work for every game. But the good news is that lots of modern games that have a hard time running on the deck can definitely make use of this, which is going to make a lot of people happy, I think. Makes me happy. I'm easy to make happy though. Most of the time all it takes is a ice cold root beer or blowing a raspberry on my tummy. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to get this up and running on your deck, which is super easy by the way, and how to set it up and enable it, and then check out some performance comparisons to see how it actually does. Does that sound good to you? No? Well, too bad. We're doing it anyways. The install process is actually super duper simple. To get this working, we use a very popular program you might have heard of called Decky Loader, and then we load the mod through that. So let's do that together now, shall we? If you have Decky Loader installed, you just need to download the mod, but I'll show you how to install Decky Loader because it's pretty simple to do. First thing we need to do is boot into desktop mode. You do that by selecting the power menu and picking switch to desktop. When you're on the desktop, you'll need to open a browser to get on the internet. You will need to download two things. You'll need the Decky Loader installer and you'll need the FSR mod zip file. I'll have links to both of these below. So for Decky Loader, scroll down, and I like to get it with this install file link. And if you're using Firefox, you need to rename it as they explain there. And for the Decky Frame Gen plugin, you get that from GitHub. And you just gotta scroll down until you see the releases on the right and click on that. And then in here, scroll down until you see deckyframegen.zip and then click on that to download it. To install Decky Loader, you need to drag the installer onto your desktop for some reason, and then run it from there. If you have an admin password set, you'll need to type that. I don't on this Steam Deck, so this pop-up says the installer will set a temporary one and then remove it. Well, that's convenient. The install should only take a minute, and then when it's done, you're done. You can use the desktop shortcut to go back to game mode, and then you're ready to use Decky. Now we need to install the Frame Gen plugin. When you open the quick settings menu on your deck, you'll now see a little plug icon at the bottom. This is Decky Loader. You can select that, but Decky is empty because we don't have any plugins installed. So now we need to select the settings cog at the top right, scroll down and enable developer mode, and then go to the developer menu and then select install plugin from zip file. And then pick the zip that we downloaded, which should be in the downloads folder, and then it will install. But on my deck, it didn't show up right away. I needed to reboot the system, and it was on my other deck as well. So you'll probably need to do that too. But after that, it showed up. So just give that a try if yours doesn't show up immediately. And then after a reboot, there's just one more step. Open the Decky Loader menu and then select Decky Frame Gen, and then select Install FG Mod. And then once that's done, you're ready to enable it for your games. This is done on a per game basis. When you open the menu, you'll see a list of all the games on your deck. So select the game that you want to try it with and then choose patch. And then you'll see a message that the game was patched. And then when you start the game, it'll automatically be available. And to remove the patch, you can use this same menu, but click the unpatch button. It's that easy. For our first game test, let's go with good old The Witcher 3. This is a game that runs really darn good on the deck at lower settings. I'll play this game any way I can get it, but I love me some Witcher 3 on the Steam Deck. When I'm hanging out on the couch, grinding out some side quests, I'm very familiar with how this game runs on the deck because I play it so much. Novigrad is a good test area because it's so intense, so let's head into there. This is the same settings that I always have it set to. 800p, medium preset with quality FSR. And I'm at 11 watt TDP. And yeah, this is the performance I always end up getting, about 45 FPS in the cities. And the input latency is normal. I mean, I'm used to the Steam Deck and this feels perfect to me. So the way we enable frame generation is to just turn it on. Yeah, that's right. Now when we open up The Witcher's display settings, we can enable DLSS frame generation. The game thinks that we have an RTX 40 series graphics card. So let's turn this stuff on, and oh, real quick, I do want to show you this. You can enable DLSS as well. However, that isn't actual DLSS. It's FSR 3.1, which is, that's good that we get that. It's a bit nicer looking than FSR 2, so you can turn that on. But just know that it's not actual DLSS. And as you can see, we are able to enable DLSS frame generation as well. So let's see how we did. And yeah, look at that. Getting between 70 and 75 FPS or so. That's freaking awesome. I mean, it's not double the FPS like I was promised, but it's a huge boost. And input latency is, you know, like, I don't think I can actually feel any latency. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but it's really dang close. I mean, it feels about the same as before. Hang on, I'm gonna turn it off. I actually want to see. Yeah, same feel. I mean, this isn't a Twitch reflex game or anything. Even the default controls kind of just feel sluggish in this game, so I don't know. If there is latency, it's very minor. And I'd much rather play the game at 75 FPS with a tiny bit of latency rather than 45 FPS with no latency. That's just me though. I'm not a competitive gamer or anything. I mean, not that you can't even play this game competitively. I mean, is there such thing as competitive Witcher 3? I mean, this is why I wanted to show you the mod, because it makes these games just run so much better. Obviously, different areas of the game will have different performance, but overall, yeah, this is a big step up from how it runs on the deck without any tweaks. And even if you don't need the extra performance, then you can still go the other way and crank up the graphics or lower the TDP, and you can run at the same FPS as before with much higher graphical settings or a much lower TDP. That's really what I love most about this mod, that it gives you options. More options is always a good thing. For example, you have the option to click the like button or click the subscribe button. Both are great choices. You can't do both though. Trust me, terrible things will happen if you click like and subscribe. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm warning you. Dragon Age The Veilguard is a game that does not run great on the Steam Deck. Here I am at the lowest settings with Ultra Performance FSR, which looks like total garbage, and it runs like total garbage too, like 20 FPS, and the FSR makes it a blurry mess. I'm in this busy area of Docktown, and this is like a worst case scenario, I think, because there's so many NPCs. The FPS just tanks in this area. So if we can get it running well here, then we should be good everywhere in the game. However, before we do the frame gen, this is one thing that I discovered in this game. The Steam Deck does a terrible job at managing the GPU clock speed in this game. If you manually set the GPU clock to 1600 megahertz, that helps a lot. It brings us up to like a bit over 30 FPS, which is a nice boost. So since we get that boost, I'm going to switch over to Performance FSR because the game is way too ugly on Ultra Performance, and this looks a lot better. And it's actually playable like this too. So let's see what DLSS Frame Gen can do for us. I mean FSR Frame Gen, of course. And oh yeah, that's real nice. Getting mid 50s, up to 60 FPS sometimes. And it does look good and it does feel really, really good. However, there is some visual weirdness introduced by the frame gen. It doesn't really get picked up on camera very well, but I'll try to show you. You see this sort of ghost trail that my character's head is making in the dark street here, and how terrible the arrows on my character look. They're kind of ghosty and flickery, so I'm going to switch over to balanced upscaling instead of performance to try to fix that, and yeah, that's a lot better. There is still some minor ghosting, and the arrows don't look amazing, but all of the problems are fixed enough to the point where they aren't distracting. They don't bother me like this, I can ignore them. And we're still getting around 56 FPS, and that's totally worth the trade-off. And there is still some very minor visual weirdness things. For example, you can see the quest marker on the screen sort of looks like it's jumping around a bit, at like it's moving at a lower FPS. Some visual markers do that, and it's a little bit distracting, but it's not a deal breaker. I'd call this a huge win for FSR Frame Gen, because without it, the game really isn't playable, and now it's not only playable, but also enjoyable. And no noticeable input latency in this game either. Stupid boxes. Nobody cares that I'm breaking all these boxes. When I do this in real life, people get coming at me like, what the hell, man? You can't just break all my boxes. I need those, obviously. I'm breaking these boxes and these goobers are just sitting there like NPCs. NPCs without boxes. I'm realizing now how many modern games I don't own on Steam. I haven't bothered pulling the trigger on all this new stuff. I know lots of these are supposed to be really good, and I really should play more modern AAA games, but I've just been so into retro games and the indie scene. Those are the kind of games I want to play these days mostly, and there's just not enough hours in the day. Plus, sometimes it pays to be a patient gamer, you know? Let's do one more. This is Hogwarts Legacy. For this game, I'm running at the medium settings with FSR2 set to performance, and the game actually runs pretty good, getting around like 45, 50 FPS, but it's going up and down as I'm running around. Totally playable though. The game doesn't look all that sharp and crisp with performance FSR, which is why I wanted to get frame gen working, not to give me a higher FPS, but to allow me a good FPS while going with higher settings, because I don't like the way it looks on the very lowest setting with performance FSR. This area with lots of grass and the cottage is good because the FPS goes down here. So without frame gen here, we're getting 33 to 34 FPS, and with frame gen, boom, up to around 56 FPS. And then running around, yeah, this is way smoother. Actually, when I left this area in the field over here, I was getting like 75 FPS and no noticeable input latency. Not that it matters in this game. So I changed to the balanced upscaling profile, and yeah, I'm still getting well over 60 FPS on average. And the game looks great. I was expecting some visual weirdness with the grass here, and there is a little bit of that. It doesn't come across well on camera, but you can kind of tell that it's using frame gen if you're really looking, but honestly, it's totally fine. it would never bother me. So yeah, the game looks great. The input latency is fine, and I can run it with higher graphics while still getting a great frame rate. I'm calling this a win. So should you bother with this frame gen stuff is the question. And ultimately, kinda, yeah. I mean, I feel like this is a great option for the games that support it. However, I should say I didn't test any Twitch reflex games or even any first-person shooters. Nothing I felt with the input latency was a problem, but when I was doing my initial tests, I found that if I had a lower FPS to start with, then the frame gen might bring the FPS up, but it'll still kind of feel like a lower FPS game. I could feel the latency then, so definitely only use this to get your FPS up from an already playable FPS. But take a 30 to 40 FPS game and make it a 60 FPS game, and you probably won't have a problem with the controls. I mean, at least I didn't in these games, but like I said, I don't have a ton of high-end games that support frame gen. I tested what I could, so your mileage may vary. And obviously this only works on the games that support DLSS FRAME GEN. This isn't a system-wide thing like lossless scaling on the PC. Maybe we'll get something like that in the future to work on all games. That would be freaking incredible and totally within the realm of possibility. We'll see if that ever comes to pass, and I will definitely make a video about it when it does. So that's really all I have for you today. I wanted to show you this and give you an idea of what to expect. If you want to try this out for yourself, there's links in the doodad below. Click the thumbs up button if you like the video, or don't if you didn't. That's it from me. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.